I read from the book of Acts. I know it's a bit different from the trend of what I've been doing along, like my reading lines coming from Samuel and into Kings, but we brought up um, this story in the book of Acts in my men's group last time, and it was just interesting to read, and it was something that I thought that I wanted to share with you guys. So, Acts of the Apostles 9:13 through 16 says, "But Lord," exclaimed Ananias, "I've heard many people talk about the terrible things this man has done to the believers in Jerusalem, and he is authorized by the leading priest to arrest everyone who calls upon your name." But the Lord said, "Go, for Saul is my chosen instrument to take my message to the Gentiles and to the kings, as well as to the people of Israel, and I will show him how much he must suffer for my name's sake." And today I'm grateful for my family and my friends, my children and my wife, um, and most importantly, a community that listens to God's word. Um, just for context, in this particular story, as a lot of people know the story of when Saul was converted to Paul, and when Saul was blinded on the road to Damascus, um, he was taken into Jerusalem, and there was a man called Ananias, and Saul. Remember now, Saul was a person who was a strong persecutor of the followers of Christ. Like so bad to the point where like he basically was a foreman of death. You know, um, and he he was blinded in the situation, and in the situation, when God spoke to Ananias, God spoke to him and told him, "Hey, I need you to go and see Saul." And you could imagine what the level of anxiety Ananias must have felt because, he this was Saul was a person who was like famous for persecuting them, like I mean world famous for like killing them, like torturing them. Literally, he had just finished stoning Stephen, who was the first martyr of the Christian faith right before this happened. So you could only imagine how nervous he was. And he asked God in this particular verse that I shared, he said, God, you sure you mean me? And that made me stop and think, and he still had the faith to go out and follow God's word and to be a part of helping someone who would have been looked at as somebody who would have persecuted and killed his friends, you know? And I could only imagine the anxiety and how challenging it must have been for him at that moment. But it was a good reminder of two things. Number one is that when God calls you to do something, He has already protected you. He already knew that the scales was going to be over Saul's eyes. He already knew that Saul's heart had already been broken and changed. So when Ananias came into his life, he was, he was, Saul was ready to receive him, more or less. And that's it's so important for us to when we listen to God's word, to us to just walk into it unconditionally. Like, "Yeah, God, we don't know where you're taking us, but we know that wherever you're doing within our lives right now is for the greater good of ourselves or for somebody else, you know? And this this whole change with Saul turning to Paul, and it is, if anyone ever get a chance, like this story is very deep, and it's a very it's a very interesting story to see the first of a few things, where Stephen, obviously, being the first martyr of the Christian faith, and Saul actually being a part of that, the part of his stoning, and then being converted into Christianity, with Paul later being the greatest evangelist to ever live. So, and having contributed so much to the faith by writing so many books that, that echo into history right now. But Um, yeah, sorry. Did anyone just ever get a chance to it? Just go back into Acts and read the story. It's really interesting. I see Precious has came in now and iJelly, so I can pass the mic on to iJelly. I'm Gary, and I relinquish my mic.